Hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. This has been such a long, amazing road for me to get to this point, and I had to start this whole thing to tell you all a little bit about my story, how I started writing, and the whole process of today, because it has been quite a long journey. So it actually started 5.5 years ago. It was the fall of 2008. And I was a junior in college at the time, and I was taking my first creative writing class. Our first homework assignment that we had was to write either a poem, a short story, or a chapter from a novel, and we had to read it out loud to our class. So I decided I would just write the first chapter of a book idea I had. I was pretty scared to share it with the class because I hadn't actually shared any original fiction since elementary school. Because when I was in second grade, I used to write these long stories and share them, but then, I don't know, middle school and high school happened, and you start worrying what people think about you, so I stopped doing that. So the first chapter that I'd written was the first in a story aimed at teenagers. This story would later be self-published as my first book called Remembrance. And after I wrote it, I worried that my teacher and my classmates would kind of look down their noses at me because this was, a college writing class. We were supposed to be writing really serious pieces, not young adult fiction. But I handed the first chapter in anyway, figuring I would see what everyone thought about it. And the last thing that I expected was for my teacher to tell me that the piece was the best in the class. And my classmates then told me that they loved it and that I had to continue writing because they needed to know what was going to happen next. I could barely speak when I was hearing their comments just because what they were saying made me so happy that I thought I was about to start crying in the middle of class. Because I've always loved writing, but at that point I'd never tried writing a novel just because I doubted myself. I wasn't sure if my writing was good enough, or if my story ideas were anything special, or if I had the discipline to complete an entire book, because it is quite the big project to undertake. But then I realized that I would never know if I could do it or not if I didn't try. So in that moment, I decided that I was going to try writing a novel and try to get it published. And after that class, I went back to my dorm room and I called my parents and I told them this revelation that I had, that I was going to write a book. I'd always liked writing since I was young, and they were always very encouraging, so they weren't actually very surprised just because I always had these story ideas. And the rest of my family, my best friends, were all super supportive as well. But I also knew that I had to prove to everyone and to myself that I could do this, because most people say they're going to write a book and they start, but they never actually finish it. I refused to be one of those people. So with the support from the people that I cared about, many who are here with me today, I set the goal to finish the draft of my novel by the end of my junior year in college. So since writing a novel is a really big task to undertake, I decided to view it in segments instead of looking at it as, this big 300-page document I had to write. So I set a goal for myself to write 1,000 words per day, 5 days a week. I figured that if I did that, the first draft would be completed before the end of my junior year. And so I had a chunk of time between my afternoon classes that semester, and I declared that to be my official writing time. And I treated it like I would treat any other homework assignment for my class. If I didn't get writing done during that time, then I didn't allow myself to go out with my friends at night because writing was the most important thing to me. And by the end of my junior year, I ended up completing the first draft of Remembrance. And writing the end on that book was probably one of the most satisfying moments ever because I'd done it. I proved to myself that I could write this book. But at the same time, it really was only the beginning of this journey. I spent the entire summer between my junior and senior years of college editing Remembrance and researching the publishing industry. My family and friends helped me with editing, especially my mom, who must have read it more than 20 times. My grandparents helped read it. My Aunt Barbara read it with me that summer. My friends read it, and my dad read it, my brother read it. Just everyone read this, and they all gave me their feedback. They even read it in first draft format, and it needed tons of work, and they encouraged me and told me they loved it anyway, which was very nice to hear. But when I was researching the publishing industry, I found out that editors at publishing houses won't just read your book. You need to get a literary agent first. So I decided I was going to find an agent for my book. So that summer, I attended something called a pitch slam in New York City, which is basically like speed dating but with literary agents. They'll sit behind tables just like this one, and writers will form a line in front of them and give 5-minute pitches of their book. And during that time, an agent will then decide if they think the book has potential or not. And if it does have potential, they'll give you their card, and they'll say, send me anywhere from 10 pages of your book to the entire manuscript. Out of the 10 agents that I pitched to that day, 9 of them told me that they wanted to see more of my book, and the one who didn't apologized to me and said it was only because he had another author who he felt would compete too much with me. So I had really high hopes after that meeting. So many of the other writers were walking around looking so dejected because the agents weren't interested in their book, but meanwhile I'd gotten all of this positive feedback. So that summer, I sent my manuscript to the 9 agents who requested it, and I sent a pitch letter to agents who I discovered online. But despite the positive feedback that I got from the pitch slam, the rejections started to come in. The research I'd done in the industry had warned me to expect rejection, but rejection hurts no matter what. And so by the end of the summer, I started to really worry. I thought no agents were going to be interested in my book. So senior year started, and it was the first week, and suddenly I got a call from one of the agents that I had submitted my book to. And she said that she had read my book and she wanted to represent me. I was so excited, so I signed with her immediately, and she helped me edit the book, and a few weeks later, she sent it out to editors at publishing houses. And I had high hopes that at least one of these editors at these houses would be interested, but unfortunately, the rejections came in again. It hurt every time, but I refused to give up. Writing novels had become my calling in life. Sharing these stories that I constantly create has been something that I need to do. So in the years since I wrote the first chapter of Remembrance, it's become a fundamental part of my identity. And I knew that the only way to get a book of mine on the shelves was to persevere and just keep writing and keep trying. And so during my senior year of college, I wrote another book. That book got rejected as well, but I still refused to give up. So in the year following graduation, I wrote another book. This one was inspired by multiple trips that I had taken to Las Vegas, and it was about 3 sisters who discover they're the long-lost heiresses of a Las Vegas billionaire casino owner. I was really proud of this book, because the first 2 books that I'd written had kind of followed trends in the young adult market, but I felt like this Las Vegas book was different from everything being published at the time. I'd never read a young adult book set in Las Vegas, and it's such a fun, glitzy city that I found the location kind of became a character of its own. I really believed in this book and thought it had true potential. But unfortunately, my agent that I had signed with for Remembrance 2 years ago didn't love this Vegas story enough to push it to publishing houses. She was attached to Remembrance. She loved that book so much, and she suggested to me that I self-publish it. I wasn't quite ready to give up my dream of being published by a traditional house, but I felt a little bit out of options at the time. And I did see that self-published authors could be successful. There's so many great stories you'll see online, like Amanda Hocking and Cora Carmack, and just all these other authors who have done an amazing job with their self-published book. So nearly 3 years ago, it was the summer of 2011, I decided to publish Remembrance myself. This book later became part 1 of what is called the Transcend Time Saga. And at the time, I actually didn't know much about marketing my book, but one of my best friends, Tiffany, who's here in the audience today, is a YA book blogger, and she has an MBA with a focus in marketing, and is interned at publishing. So when she saw that I put Remembrance online and I had no pre-publication, publication, or post-publication plans at all to get it out, except for just trying to find people to review it and writing blog posts about it, she took action. Within 1 week, she emailed me this 10-page marketing plan that she'd written up for me, full of ways to get my book seen by readers. So I took her advice, and I taught myself how to use social media to spread word about my book. Then 6 months later, with so much help from my mom, we toured around the country for 2.5 months, speaking all day to high school students to spread word about this book. She put the entire tour together. She arranged where I was speaking, so much of this detail work that I'm not necessarily the best with myself, and I was literally selling books out of the trunk of my car to these students all across the country. But midway through the tour, we were on the peak of this tall mountain in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I had this realization. I realized that self-publishing Transcend Time was a great start to my career, but I wasn't ready to give up on my dream of being published by a major publishing house. I even had connected with the executive editor at Harlequin Teen, Natasha Wilson, at an event that I had attended that past summer. And she read The Secret Diamond Sisters, and she loved it, but she didn't feel it was quite ready to show to her team. So she'd given me edits and said she wanted to see it again after I implemented those edits. But despite all of that, the agent who I was with at the time was still unfazed. She still was so attached to her remembrance. She loved that book, and she wasn't interested in The Secret Diamond Sisters. So I decided to do something pretty risky, and I emailed that agent and parted ways with her. This was pretty risky because finding an agent is really difficult, and the fact that I had an agent at all already set me apart from so many aspiring writers. But even though it was scary, I knew the choice was the right one. Now, this agent also had an intern, and this intern helped out edit client manuscripts. His name is Brent Taylor, and he was a high school student at the time. He loved The Secret Diamond Sisters, and he believed it could get picked up by a major publishing house, especially after the feedback I'd gotten from Harlequin. And along with interning for my previous agent, he also was interning for another agent, Molly Carahong from the Bent Agency. Molly had years of experience in the world of publishing, and she specialized in young adult and middle grade fiction. So she was the type of agent that I really had always wanted. And Brent then went ahead, and he personally recommended The Secret Diamond Sisters to Molly. And I wanted her to love it so badly. Luckily, less than a month later, I got a phone call from her, and she told me that she loved The Secret Diamond Sisters, and she offered me representation for the book. I was over the moon. When we talked on the phone, she was so excited about the book. We totally clicked, and I knew that she was the right agent for me. I had such a good feeling about it. My risky move with leaving my old agent had paid off. I had a fresh start with The Secret Diamond Sisters, and I was ready to move forward in my career. So that summer, Molly and I polished The Secret Diamond Sisters to get it ready to submit to publishers. Finally, in September 2012, she sent it to the 6 biggest publishing houses in the country. And then the waiting began. I knew to be patient because publishing is a really slow industry. Well-meaning family and friends would ask me weekly for news, and they didn't really understand that it rarely happens that fast. Rejections usually come quicker than acceptances, though, so the rejections did start to come in. There were various reasons why people weren't interested in it. Maybe it was too much of a competition with another book in their series, they thought it was too risque, or they didn't love it enough to devote the time necessary to working with me on edits for months and months and months. But finally, in early December, I heard what I was waiting for. Natasha Wilson at Harlequin Teen loved what I did with the edits she had given me, and she was bringing the book to an acquisitions day. You see, for a book to get picked up, it needs more than just one person at a publishing house to love it. Publishing imprints only pick up a handful of books every year, and they're super selective about what they add to their list. Books brought to the acquisitions meeting are analyzed by marketing, publicity, and financial teams so that they can make sure the book has a good chance at being profitable for the company. So when I heard that Secret Diamond Sisters was going to this acquisitions meeting, I was on edge for days. Finally, on the afternoon of December 13th, 2012, my agent called me with good news. The book had made it past the meeting, and Harlequin Teen wanted to publish it as a trilogy. So I had sold not 1, but 3 books to them. Needless to say, that night, my mom and I went to my favorite restaurant, The Melting Pot, to celebrate. But at that point, the hard work really was just only beginning. Because once an author signs a contract, publishing speeds up like crazy. The Secret Diamond Sisters wasn't slated to come out until March 2014, which was over a year after I received the offer of publication. And I had a lot more work to do on it. Firstly, Natasha gave me major edits via a phone call. These were huge edits. For example, I needed to add a new male character into the story as a love interest for one of the sisters. I also had to give the sisters more distinct voices and add a subplot into the entire story, along with many other details. I somehow managed to do that all in 1 month. Next came my editorial letter. Now, I'd heard horror stories about editorial letters because some authors get these and they are 10 to 20 pages long, single-spaced, all about what the author has to do to improve their book. So when I opened my email and saw mine was only 5 pages, I was actually pretty relieved. This letter consisted of ways I could further improve the characters and scenes I needed to work on, with suggestions to make them better, ways to incorporate secondary characters, and ways to raise the stakes in the story. It was a lot of work, and it took me another month of holding myself in my room every day, not going out at all, and just working on editing non-stop. But once I finished, the book was so much better. Natasha, my editor, had pushed me to bring the story to a whole new level, and I was thrilled by how much the book had changed since it had been acquired that past December. And it's also worth a mention that while all this was going on with all these edits, I was also writing the first draft of Book 2, Diamonds in the Rough, because that book was due on November 1st of that year as well. So once I'd gone through both rounds of major story edits, the book then went through line edits and finally copy edits, and then by the end of October, I got this big box from Harlequin's team in the mail. And this had 100 advanced reader copies of The Secret Diamond Sisters. And it was really the first time that I was able to hold this book in my hand, and it was so surreal for me. It just all became true, it all became real in that moment, that in a few months my book would be in bookstores all over the world. I've always loved bookstores. As a kid, I remember I would go into them and I would browse in my favorite sections for what felt like hours. I would read the back blurb of every book in the sections that I liked, and I would add them to this huge to-buy pile that I would collect when I was walking through the store. And then my parents would tell me that I had to go through the to-buy pile and just find my top 5, and then we would just, leave with those for that trip. And now I can walk into bookstores and I can see my book on the shelves. Hopefully people will read the back of it and put it into their to-read piles, bring it home with them, and enjoy it. Seeing my book on the shelves for that first time, alongside authors that I've admired for years, was such an incredible experience. It's amazing to think that my book will be on shelves all around the world, just waiting to be discovered. I wouldn't have gotten to this point without some amazing people who've supported me, and so many of you are here with me today. First of all, my mom and my dad. You guys have been so patient with me as I've discovered the path that I wanted to take in life. You've really allowed me to be my own person and follow my own unique journey. Most people aren't so lucky, and not a day goes by that I don't appreciate how open-minded and accepting you are about my going for my dreams. And thank you also, of course, to my brother Steven. For your never-ending encouragement and for reading all my books, even though they're probably not something that you would necessarily pick up on your own. It's pretty cool that every time I meet a friend of yours, one of the first things they always tell me is how proud you are of my writing. And I also want to thank my grandparents, Phyllis and Paul Lichtenstein, and Lois and Selvin Dallas. The 4 of you, you're all such smart, hardworking individuals, and you're fantastic examples to all of your grandchildren, showing that if you persevere and if you keep at whatever you want to do, that you can make it happen in your life. And I just think it's amazing how hardworking that all of you are. You've been great role models. And also to the rest of my extended family, so many of you are here with me today. You're always asking me the latest news regarding my books, and whenever we see each other, you're just so interested in everything going on about it, and it means a lot to me. So thank you for being here to support me today. And lastly, I'm not sure if I ever would have even finished my first novel if it hadn't been for the support of my best friends and sorority sisters, Caitlin, Tiffany, Alicia, Devin, and Amy, who are all back there. Caitlin, I'll never forget how you read each chapter of Remembrance right after I wrote it. And even though it was in super rough draft format, you loved the story and these characters nearly as much as I did, which was really encouraging for me when I was trying to finish that first draft of my book. Tiffany, like I've already said, the way you help me market my books blows my mind. Like everything you've done for me. Without asking, you created this whole marketing plan, and you've organized events throughout the blogging community to spread word about my books, and it's just amazing to me everything you do for me, for my books with that. And Alicia and Devin and Amy. Amy actually couldn't be here today because she was moving, but she was going to be here. So shout out to Amy if you're watching this on YouTube. Thank you for reading all of my drafts. You gave me feedback. You gave me critiques maybe before I was ready for it sometimes, but it did end up helping me in the end. And you came to all my events, and you've just been so supportive. And the group of you are seriously probably the best friends I could ever ask for. And you're just amazing. Like, I love the group of you so much. So as you can all tell, it's been a really long journey. I can't believe it's been 5.5 years since that day in creative writing class when I decided to write my first novel. There's been ups and there's been downs, but with determination and a lot of perseverance, I finally achieved the goal that I set years ago to become a published author. It's been one crazy ride, and now starts the beginning of a new chapter, with hopefully many more amazing adventures to come. So thank you again to everyone who's here with me to help celebrate this incredible milestone in my life. It means so much that you came out, and I hope that you're enjoying yourselves and that you'll enjoy the book. So.